Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 29th of April 2023. With May just around the corner and 3 out of the 5 Mondays in May being bank holidays, we are all looking towards a very busy period. Trying to fit 5 days' work into 4 is no mean feat. However, we're hoping that the weather will turn and this always cheers everybody's spirits up. Another reminder about the Monday Accessible IT Drop-In Clinic, which is held every Monday between 9:30 and 12:30. Sam, our resident expert, is here to help you on a one-to-one basis. Thanks to the National Lottery Funding Awards for All, within their community fund, we have laptops, iPads, Samsung tablets available to help you train on a one-to-one basis with Sam. You're also free to bring in your own phone and Sam will be able to help you with the accessibility features of this too. So it's Monday, every week, 9:30 till 12:30. Hopefully everybody has now received their spring newsletter. As always, feedback is very welcome on all articles, and if you would like to contribute, please never hesitate to get in touch with Chris at the office on 522205, and Chris can talk you through any articles you wish to do. Everybody stay safe. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White.
This is an article from the RNIB website, read by Chris. The King's Coronation to be broadcast with live accessible commentary and audio description. The coronation of King Charles will be an occasion to bring the country together. The coronation of King Charles III will be broadcast with live accessible commentary on the red button on BBC One and live audio description on ITV1 on Saturday the 6th of May. How to watch. BBC One. The event will be broadcast live on BBC One, and blind and partially sighted people will be able to join in through a synchronised accessible commentary on the BBC red button or catch up on iPlayer. This type of accessible commentary is different to audio description. Whilst audio description has traditionally been pre-recorded and mixed into the main audio after filming, this accessible commentary will be transmitted live as the event happens. ITV1. The coronation will be broadcast with live audio description on ITV1. This will be the very first broadcast on UK TV with live audio description, so a moment in itself to celebrate. Viewers will be able to switch the audio description on in the usual way by pressing the AD audio description button on the remote control. This is the very first time that a live programme on UK TV will be made accessible for viewers with sight loss. ITV and BBC are using pioneering methods to deliver live audio description which could become blueprints for future events. And we would love to hear your feedback. Share your comments with us at broadcasting@rnib.org.uk.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Battlefield Tour success for South Coast Army Cadets. Army cadets from across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight travelled to Flanders in Belgium over the Easter holidays to visit the World War I battlefields of the Western Front. Members of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Army Cadet Force were led on the tour of Belgium, known as Exercise Warhorse, by their own Dettingen music band. The Army Cadets visited key battle sites, as well as visiting several war cemeteries for both Allied and German war dead. The tour culminated in a drumhead service at Tyne-Cot Commonwealth Wargrave Cemetery, the largest British and Commonwealth cemetery in the world, with much music being played by the band. Later that same day, the cadets took part in a parade and musical performance at the Menin Gate as a part of the daily last post ceremony that is held there every evening at 2000 hours to remember those lost in the Great War. Colonel Tim Hope, MBE, Commandant of Hampshire and Isle of Wight ACF, was full of pride for their contribution in Belgium. He said, "I am immensely proud of the hard work and dedication of our cadets and Cadet Force adult volunteers who travelled to Belgium over Easter and put on a string of great performances and acts of remembrance in and around Ypres, Belgium, a place of greatly significant military history and sombre acts of remembrance for many people. They were all a credit to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Army Cadet Force." The Army Cadet Force is a youth organisation sponsored by the Ministry of Defence. If you are aged 12 to 18 and interested in becoming a cadet, or over 18 and interested in becoming a CFAV, visit armycadets.com.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Rescued tigers Softy and Toff finally heading to the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary. The Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary in Sandown is finally to welcome Softy and Toff, two rescued tigers, next week. The abused tigers, who were being kept in appalling conditions in tiny cages, were found on the Polish-Belarusian border, destined for a zoo, in inverted commas, in Dagestan, Russia. Unfortunately, another tiger had passed away as a result of the difficult conditions and was found in her cage. It is suspected that the unfortunate tigers were to have their body parts harvested for use in traditional Chinese medicine. Ahead of their arrival, a spokesperson from the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary has said, "After unavoidable logistical delays, we are really pleased to announce that Softy and Toff will be arriving on Friday the 28th of April. Their hugely anticipated arrival follows months of preparation and planning, so we hope you are as excited as we are finally to welcome these two into their new forever home."
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio being read by Paula. Become an air ambulance pilot with the charity's new helicopter simulator van. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance is putting the public's pilot skills to the test with its new flight simulator van. Budding pilots can experience the thrill of flying the charity's helicopter with realistic simulations of the physical, visual and auditory sensations of a real flight at events, workplaces, schools, clubs and groups across the region. Take off from anywhere in the world or take in the view of the life-saving crew and fly over Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The unique flying experience comes kitted out with controls, instruments and displays that closely resemble those found in the charity's own aircraft. Director of Income and Engagement, Keith Wilson, said, "It takes years of training and countless flying hours to become a HEMS pilot, but our flight simulator gives the public a chance to feel what it is like to fly our H135 helicopter on a mission. With realistic controls, instrument panels and even weather conditions, this is the closest most people will come to taking charge of HeliMed 56. We can't wait for more people to get a chance to fly the simulator while learning about our vital life-saving work." The charity has converted one of its old, disused vans to give the public a front row seat in its aircraft. The simulator van is available to book free, but the charity asks for those flying to make a donation to allow its real helicopter and crew to continue flying and saving lives. The simulator is suitable for those aged 11 and over. Booking of the simulator van is subject to availability. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance is a charity that relies entirely on the generosity of its supporters to treat the most critically ill and injured people in the region. Those interested in booking the simulator van for their event can contact the charity directly at fundraising@hiowaa.org or visit www.hiowaa.org today.
Hello everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined Ventnor Seawall Works to finally begin in May, subject to council planning application. After a recent lull in activity, works are finally set to get underway to reopen the Ventnor Seawall after the Isle of Wight Council's planning application was submitted to the Maritime Management Organisation, that's the MMO, last week. As previously reported by the Island Echo, a potential environmental disaster was identified in November 2022, as damage caused by Mother Nature had left a sewer pipe serving more than 3,000 properties in the local area in danger of releasing its contents into the sea. At the public meeting to discuss the future of the seawall, held on 21st of February, it was suggested that works would commence before the end of March, but Island Echo understands that delays to the licence applications, as well as a further collapse of the affected area in recent weeks, has meant that works will now not commence until the 1st of May. In the application, it has been stressed that the works need to be completed before the winter storms, as storms will cause further failure and damage to the existing seawall, resulting in unacceptable risk both to health and safety of workers and property above, and the environment from risk of sewer collapse and landslip, and whilst temperatures permit faster concrete curing times. However, the application also states that works are expected to last approximately 30 weeks, which from 1st of May would run into early December, well into winter. This does at least tally with what residents were told at the public meeting, that there was no prospect of the seawall reopening in any capacity until late 2023, as previously reported by Island Echo. In the long term, the Ventnor seawall will benefit from up to £54.7 million of government funding, along with schemes at Embankment Road in Bembridge, Shanklin and Yaverland. The Ventnor defences are owned and maintained by Isle of Wight Council, but the Environment Agency is working on the Council's behalf to develop a business case for future investment. They say that current estimates suggest the Ventnor scheme would be eligible for about £41 million of flood and coastal erosion risk management grant in aid funding, making it one of the biggest public infrastructure projects on the island. Full consultation has been promised over the next couple of years, with the final works expected to take several years. Local businesses and charities, including Ventnor Skate Park Group, which has already been deeply affected by the closure and the impending works, will be hoping that these consultations will prove positive long-term results, having been denied any compensation for the detrimental short-term effects of the problem.
This is Den reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Man jailed for more than 5 years for Sandown arson. A man who started a fire at his home address in Sandown has been jailed. Andrew Robert Turner, aged 59, of Beachfield Road, was charged with arson, being reckless as to whether life is endangered, following the fire which occurred on the morning of Saturday, the 26th of November, 2022. The blaze caused significant damage to the house, which he lived in at the time with his now ex-partner. When police attended, Turner approached an officer in the street and admitted he had committed the act deliberately. Turner was arrested and officers found a knife in his pocket. He also told police in an interview that he had acted out in revenge following the recent breakdown of his relationship. Appearing at Isle of Wight Crown Court on the 30th of January this year, he pleaded guilty to the arson as well as a separate charge of possessing a knife in a public place. Turner appeared at the same court today where he was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months in prison. DC Jodie Parsons said, Turner's actions were incredibly reckless that morning. The risk to life when fires are started deliberately is clear. This case is made all the more shocking due to Turner's own admissions that he was motivated by revenge as a result of not coping with the breakdown of his relationship. There is no excuse for acting so dangerously, and Turner has been rightly punished for this.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Work on Westacre Park could begin within weeks as final approval given. A scheme to build 473 much-needed new homes in Ryde could begin within just a matter of weeks, Island Echo can reveal. The news comes after final approval for Westacre Park was given by the Council's Planning Committee last Tuesday, securing £100 million worth of investment, protecting 80 local jobs and paving the way for more than 400 new homes, of which 166 will be affordable. It took the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee more than 3.5 hours to determine the future of Westacre Park, a scheme put forward by Bembridge-based Captiva Homes. The main issues committee members were debating related to the potential loss of protected curlew habitat. It was a problem raised by Natural England after the committee had approved the application in July 2021, but before official planning permission had been granted. It had held the application in limbo since June last year. Officers can now continue ironing out all the legal details which will enable the ground to be broken and building to commence. It has been confirmed to Island Echo that work on the new development will begin within just a matter of weeks after planning consent has been issued. A spokesperson for Captiva Homes has said, "We are very pleased that the committee has approved the next phase of Westacre Park. When we began planning this development, it was with the goal of setting a new benchmark for housing on our island. This decision enables us to achieve that goal, securing £100 million of investment, protecting 80 local jobs, and allowing us to deliver 473 desperately needed homes, including 166 affordable homes. As islanders ourselves, we recognise and embrace the responsibility that comes with our role. We are proud of our track record of delivering 100% of our planning applications and are now looking forward to playing a significant part in providing great value, high-quality homes to be enjoyed by islanders now and for generations to come."
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Paula. Monkey for old rope. Primates receive donation from Ryde Climbing Group. Primates at Newport's Monkey Haven are getting brand new old rope thanks to a donation from Ryde-based Goodleaf Tree Climbing. All of Goodleaf's climbing equipment is regularly checked and items that have reached their use-by date are retired. Lisa Simpkins, animal carer at Monkey Haven, said, "We are going to have some very happy primates. Our monkeys and gibbons love climbing and swinging on fresh play equipment. Ropes are a great source of enrichment for our primates, and we look forward to seeing their excitement when we refurbish their homes." Paul McCarthy, owner of Goodleaf Tree Climbing, said, "Monkey Haven does a fantastic job. It's brilliant to know the rope will get a second life after we can no longer use it, and we're not just throwing it away. It's something that makes us all very happy. Kelly Wicks, manager at Monkey Haven, added, "On behalf of the primates, I would like to say a huge thank you to Paul and Goodleaf for the rope. Our sanctuary tries to be as sustainable and eco-friendly as possible, and this outdated rope will be put to wonderful use at the Haven."
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio, headlined, Rides Mayor applauds volunteers for beach clean. Rides Mayor joined volunteers from Hover Travel and residents from the town in cleaning the beach between Ryde Marina and Apley Tower on Friday, that's April the 21st. Neil Chapman, the managing director of Hover Travel, explains. A group of 17 volunteers collected 17 bags of rubbish, including items such as a deflated dinghy and part of a polyform boat fender, alongside discarded drinks cans, plastic straws and earbuds. Keeping the seashore clean and collecting rubbish is an important way in which we can help the local community. Most of the rubbish was small to medium pieces of plastic, but some of the items we found could easily cause injury to people at the beach or damage to boats on the water. I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who volunteered today, as well as thanking Councillor Lilly and Ryde Town Council for their support with this event. Hover Travel's Hover Green policy includes identifying ways in which the business can use its resources to help protect the local environment. Ryde Mayor Isle of Wight Councillor Michael Lilly added, "I would like to add my thanks to everyone who gave their time today. Such teamwork makes a huge difference to both the people who live in Ryde and those who visit. It is inspiring to see volunteers grabbing their litter pickers and bags to help spruce up the shore area." The biannual beach cleans take place at both Hover Travel terminals.
This is Den reading an article from the Island Echo. Historic diocesan garments to feature in new book detailing treasure of Carisbrooke Castle Museum. A historic diocesan cope, which dates to the 1660s and boasts a dramatic history, is to feature in a new book detailing the treasures of the Isle of Wight's Carisbrooke Castle Museum. The cope's origins and story thereafter narrate a fascinating 17th century tale of Catholic persecution in England and abroad. The book, entitled 100 Treasures and Curiosities from the Collection of Carisbrooke Castle Museum, will celebrate the 125th anniversary of the museum by sharing the history of the Isle of Wight through 100 treasures and curiosities. The diocesan treasure, known as the St. Dominic's vestment, features embroidery created by religious sisters who lived in a Belgian community founded by Father Philip Thomas Howard. The community was established for English Roman Catholic women who had a vocation to religious life when religious orders and communities were still prohibited in England. In 1794, the sisters were forced to escape Belgium due to the outbreak of the French Revolution, and so buried the embroidery vestment in Brussels, which they recovered 2 years later and managed to smuggle back to the UK, eventually making their home at Carisbrooke in 1866 in St. Dominic's Priory, which was built for them by the Dowager Countess of Clare. To raise money for the project, the team at Carisbrooke Museum are launching a sponsorship drive with Medina Publishing, encouraging people to sponsor an artefact of their choice. Dr. Rachel Tate, curator of Carisbrooke Castle Museum, said, "I'm excited that this book will be an opportunity to share with the public the museum's collection of beautiful and significant, as well as quirky and intriguing objects, dating from prehistory to the present day and collected over the last 125 years. Bishop Philip Egan from Portsmouth said, "I was delighted to learn that a priceless piece of our diocesan heritage has been selected for this inspired project." The St. Dominic's vestment is steeped in history, reminding us of the courage and endurance of faithful Catholics in centuries past. This historic item gives us pause for thought, reflection and thanksgiving. The enclosed community who lived at St Dominic's Priory were Sisters of the Order of Preachers, founded in the 13th century by the Spanish Saint Dominic Guzman. The sisters were the last community of Dominic nuns in Britain, and the priory closed in 1989.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Pensioner says rubbish to council bureaucracy with ingenious solution. An ingenious Isle of Wight pensioner has created a personalised number plate RU881SH to circumvent bureaucracy at her local tip. Patricia, who no longer has a car, has found herself unable to leave rubbish at Afton Marsh Tip in Freshwater using her bin trolley because she lacked a wheeled vehicle with a registration mark. Council workers are required to enter a number plate with every load. With this in mind, refuse workers suggested that Patricia created her own personalised plate to be able to conform with their registration system. The resourceful Freshwater resident ordered a custom number plate with the right combination of numbers and letters at her local printing business, the printing shop IOW. She has now stuck the plate onto her homemade deluxe dustbin on wheels, which she intends to wheel down to Afton Marsh on foot shortly, in the hopes of being let in.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Paula. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary successfully recruits 600 more officers. Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones has today, Wednesday, announced the force has reached its target to recruit 600 additional police officers. The announcement comes following the government's police uplift target, which was launched in 2020 to recruit 20,000 extra police officers across the country by 2023. The government set Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary a target of 498 additional officers. However, PCC Donna Jones went one step further and pledged an extra 102 police officers, bringing the total target for the force to 600. She said, "I'm delighted to announce today the force has now surpassed the government's target and recruited a net increase of 600 officers, which is over and above replacing those who leave or retire. It has been the largest recruitment drive the force has ever delivered. These extra 600 are the first step. Another 50 will be recruited in the coming year. I want to go further. I want to get to 1,000 as quickly as we possibly can."
Hello everyone, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo, headlined, "Oh yes, oh yes! Lifelong ride champion and former town crier Steve King dies." The community of Ryde has been reflecting on the sad news over the weekend that former town crier Steve King has died. Steve, who had proudly championed Ryde throughout his life, passed away on Saturday. He had been the town crier in Ryde for some 10 years before being told his services were no longer required, taking up short stints in Southampton and Yarmouth afterwards before returning to Ryde. He retired in December 2021. During his tenure, Steve had been seen front and centre of the town's many carnivals and parades, as well as taking his place in the High Street to make important announcements such as the declaration of a new store opening or announcing the Queen's birthday. Taking to social media, Historic Ride Society said that Mr. King had given so much to and for the town and will always be fondly remembered.
Before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society's News, 1st of May 2023. There is no swimming for the next 2 Mondays due to the bank holidays, but it will resume on Monday the 17th of May.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook between 1:45pm and 2:45pm. Refreshments will be served afterwards. Please note this is a new time.
Coffee and chat will be on Wednesday between 10am and 11:30am here at Millbrook House. Please come along and chat with members, friends and staff. This week, the 3rd of May, Laura Guljar, our ECLO from St Mary's, will be joining us.
The monthly book group will meet at Millbrook House next Thursday the 11th. Please note the change of date and location. This is due to the coronation party and building works at the library. If you would like to join this free group, you are very welcome, and they meet between 2pm and 3pm.
For any information of the activities or events mentioned, please do not hesitate to call the office on 522205.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Sue Lupton
and Morris.
We begin with more news items taken from the Observer and County Press. 1. News items and sport. Tributes after sudden death of father. Tributes are being paid to an Isle of Wight father of 3 who died unexpectedly last week. Friends of Sam Willis from Newport have set up a fundraiser to support his family and to raise funds for Southampton General Hospital. The 34-year-old passed away suddenly on April the 19th, following a short illness. Sam's friend, Kay Gale, said he had an ear infection which led to mastoiditis and meningitis. He leaves behind his partner of 17 years, Rochelle, and 3 young children, Ezra 4, Marley 6 and Reuben 9. Kay, whose husband was best friends with Sam, said, "We are all in utter shock and disbelief. I thought I'd start a little GoFundMe page, as I know after speaking to Rochelle and Sam's family, they'd like donations made towards the Neuroscience Intensive Care Unit in Southampton General Hospital. The money will be split between the department and the family. Donations currently stand at £9,000 and the aim is to get to 10,000. Vestas, the company where Sam worked, is flying its flags at half-mast in tribute. You can donate at GoFundMe/5334A7D4.
Coronation Champions. The Isle of Wight's Lord Lieutenant, Mrs. Susie Sheldon, has congratulated 2 outstanding volunteers who have been selected as Coronation Champions by the National Royal Voluntary Service Team. They are 2 of only 500 people across the UK to be recognised with this award and will be receiving a special certificate signed by both His Majesty King Charles III and Her Majesty Queen Camilla, as well as a specially designed official Coronation Champions pin in advance of the coronation. Sandown Green Town volunteer Ben Holbrook from Lake also freely gives his time to Sandown Carnival and is a tremendous example of putting service before self. This award recognises the difference that he makes to the community he lives in. Ben said, "It's an honour for me and my family to receive this recognition, and as part of Sandown Green Town and the Carnival teams, it is very much a team effort, with all volunteers caring about where we live." The Lord Lieutenant presented Ben and members of the Sandown Green Town team with the Queen's Award for the voluntary service last year. Ruth Hollingshead has also been selected for the honour. She has volunteered for the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind, Guide Dogs for the Blind and the Macular Society for many years. She has acted as volunteer receptionist, fundraiser, befriender and trustee, but above all, giving peer support, counselling and talks to a variety of groups to raise awareness. CEO of Sight for White, Lisa Hollingshead, said, "When I joined Sight for White, Ruth was one of the first people I met. It was 2 days before I realised she was blind. She got on with managing reception, answering calls, replying to emails and engaging with every visitor so effortlessly. She really is an inspiration to us all." Despite living without sight, she runs marathons, completed a criminology degree and still found time to be a trustee for the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind. In this role, she has delivered courses Living Well with Sight Loss. Ruth said, "I am honoured to be nominated and accept the award on behalf of all volunteers at Sight for White, without whom the charity simply could not exist."
Top celebrity chef serving up at festival. Celebrity chef River Cottage's Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall will help launch a new food and drink festival called the Great White Bite in Cowes on September 9th and 10th. Based at Northwood House, it aims to celebrate every part of the island's food scene, putting the Isle of Wight on the map as one of the UK's most exciting foodie destinations. Hugh said, "The Isle of Wight has a great farming and fishing heritage and is home to some exciting food and drink producers and restaurants. The Great White Bite has something for everyone. See you all at Northwood House." Among the attractions will be a fine dining pop-up restaurant run by the Smoking Lobster. A rustic-style chef's demo stage will host chefs including the award-winning Robert Thompson. A masterclass kitchen will run culinary experience, the chance to sharpen up on fish filleting skills, try pasta making, or perfect a gin cocktail. For kids, there will be the Little Cook's Den, complete with their very own chef's chat. Event director Dominique Noel said, "We are thrilled to be launching a new food and drink festival, combined with one of the best growing climates in the country. The produce from land and sea is simply incredible. Over 80 stalls are promised, spanning cuisine from around the world, including paella, crispy duck, churros, tacos and an oyster bar. Benbridge-based White Knuckle Brewery will be on hand, and the gastronomy team from Cowes will serve up signature margaritas. Award-winning English sparkling wine from Hattingley Valley and the Isle of Wight Meat Company are sponsors." Dean Pascal said, "Cheverton Farm is delighted to sponsor the Great White Bite. We are passionate about farming and working towards a sustainable Isle of Wight. Food will be sourced on the island where possible, and only recyclable materials will be allowed on site. The profit from the sale of reusable pint cups will go to charity."
Hundreds on waiting list for Major Homes scheme. More than 700 people are on the waiting list for a major ride housing development amid the island's housing crisis. The 473 home West Acre Park scheme, which could start in weeks, has been reapproved with new conditions. Developer Captiva Homes said it is pleased the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee members approved the next phase at Tuesday's meeting. The development's permission had been paused after an issue was raised around the potential loss of curlew habitat, but this has now been solved. A spokesperson for the island house builder said the council's decision will enable it to set a benchmark for housing on the island, securing £100 million investment, protecting 80 local jobs and delivering much-needed homes, including 166 affordable ones. Captiva said, "As islanders, we recognise and embrace the responsibility that comes with our role. We are proud of our track record of delivering 100% of our planning applications and are now looking forward to playing a significant part in providing great value, high quality homes to be enjoyed by islanders now and for generations to come. The developer now only needs the legal agreements behind the permission to be signed off before work can start on site. Ian Delaney, Captiva's chief executive, said islanders want and need homes, with 747 active enquiries on the waiting list already. He highlighted the lack of affordable homes built on the island in the last decade, which he felt was a huge contributor to the island's housing crisis, and that Captiva would be building 166 in the new development.
Milestone 100th birthday celebration. An island woman celebrated her 100th birthday at Cornelia Manor Care Home in Newport on Saturday. Betty May White was born in 1923 in Croydon and moved to the island in 1933 when her father, a prison medical officer, was transferred to work at Parkhurst Prison. After finishing school at Honey Hill, she worked at Tomlinson's Grocers and Tobacconists on St. James Street in Newport. She later went to work at J.S. White in Cowes, in the planning office and switchboard, also stitching Spitfire seats during the war years. It was here she met John White, an aircraft fitter and well-known island footballer who also played semi-professionally for Leyton Orient. They were married in June 1945 at Northwood and went on to have 4 children: Barry, Baz, Barbara, Roger and Colin, Fred. On leaving work, Betty dedicated her time to raising her children and supporting her extended family, friends and neighbours. She has always been a prolific knitter and has made enough baby clothes, jumpers, woolly hats and blankets to clothe the nation, said Roger. In addition to her 4 children, Betty has 10 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren.
Arsonist started fire in home in revenge. A man who started a fire in his own home on the Isle of Wight has been jailed. Andrew Robert Turner of Beachfield Road was charged with arson, being reckless as to whether life is endangered, following a fire in Sandown on November the 26th of last year. The blaze caused significant damage to the house, which he lived in at the time with his now ex-partner. When police attended, the 59-year-old approached an officer in the street and admitted he'd committed the act deliberately. Turner was arrested and officers found a knife in his pocket. He also told police in an interview that he had acted out in revenge following the recent breakdown of his relationship. Appearing at Isle of Wight Crown Court earlier this year, he admitted arson as well as a separate charge of possessing a knife in a public place. Turner appeared at the same court today, where he was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months in prison. In the wake of the sentencing, DC Jodie Parsons said, "Turner's actions were incredibly reckless that morning. The risk to life when fires are started deliberately is clear. This case is made all the more shocking due to Turner's own admissions that he was motivated by revenge as a result of not coping with the breakdown of his relationship. There is no excuse for acting so dangerously, and Turner has been rightly punished for this."
Pier work ongoing. The transformation of Totland Pier has been captured on camera over 12 months. Website Isle of Wight Guru, isleofwightguru.co.uk, is behind a YouTube video showing a year's worth of change. The West Wight landmark is being refurbished and rebuilt as part of a multi-million-pound plan. The pier, cafe and moorings went up for sale in December 2021. Since then, its new owners have delivered swift development. The 140-metre pier dates to the Victorian era. work has been underway on the steel piles and platform and its boardwalk, with an aim to ensuring it lasts another 100 years. When the project is complete, a new 2-level restaurant will open at the end of the pier, catering for 120 customers inside and 100 outside. Meanwhile, discussions are ongoing over what will happen to the popular beach cafe at the other end of the walkway. Last month, a scheme to turn it into flats was refused.
Will 3 become 1? A proposal to merge 3 Isle of Wight town and parish councils into one to cover the Bay Area was met with mixed reactions earlier this week. The idea was proposed at Sandown Town Council's annual public meeting by resident Bob Blezard. He said amalgamating Sandown and Shanklin Town Councils and Lake Parish Council, creating Sandown Shanklin Urban District Council, would be the best way forward. It has been done before, but Councillor Heather Humby, who served in the combined authority, said it did not work, and Sandown was always treated as a poor relative, so she was totally opposed to the proposal. Mr Blezard argued it would lower the council tax precept payment for Sandown residents, which is higher than in neighbouring parishes, but for a comparable level of service. He called that a serious injustice. Mr Blezard said the proposal would increase the tax level for those in Lake and Shanklin, which they may not like, but together the single council would be greater than the sum of its parts. Sandown Mayor, Councillor Paddy Lightfoot, said in his opinion the areas had different numbers of public toilets, playgrounds and skate parks they were responsible for, and they didn't have a lifeguard service, so it was not comparable. He feared the reduced precept for Sandown residents would mean the closure of services in the town, so it would hardly be a success. Councillor Lightfoot said he would not support it and would prefer to see the councils continue to work together and strengthen those relationships. One resident said it seemed to be a reasonable proposal and was surprised at the arguments against it. Another said Sandown needed its own pride and to be responsible for its own town, while another questioned whether those in neighbouring areas would want to pay for improvements in Sandown. The reality, they said, would be that services would be cut, and it would be out of the town's control when they are just a third of the bay again. No official decision was made, although Mr Blezard was encouraged to consult with residents and the other areas to bring it back to the council if he got support.
Insight into world of National Health Service. Busting a myth that the NHS is all about blood, sick and poorly people was top of the agenda when health professionals made an eye-opening visit to an Isle of Wight school this week. Pupils at Christ the King College were given the chance to see firsthand what life is like working for the health service, including speaking to those on the front line. From creating limbs with the prosthetics department to working with biomedical science specialists, many of the 350 NHS career options on offer were explored. 5 classrooms were transformed in an attempt to inspire the next generation of NHS workers. Claire Rennie, teacher of maths and computer science and STEM coordinator, science, technology, engineering and mathematics at Christ the King, said, "It's not just about rockets and fast cars or even environmental technology, however important that all is. STEM comes into many aspects of the NHS, including mental health. I've really seen pupils' eyes opened." Among the health professionals who visited the school were mental health nurses, occupational therapists, and staff from the orthotics and prosthetics departments. Also on hand to chat with pupils were operating department practitioners, one of the new departments most in need of new recruits. Students were given the chance to learn CPR. Kat Milmore Davies, Careers and Outreach Lead for the NHS, 350 plus careers programme, said, "The NHS isn't just blood sick and poorly people. We've got our own plumbers and builders. There are over 350 careers across the NHS, and every young person should feel they can fit in. The students go, 'Oh, that's something I'd love to do. I would love to be an art therapist or music therapist.' It's amazing to see their faces." Head teacher at Christ the King College, Andrew Montrose, said the experience was incredibly valuable for students. He said, "We hope to have future events and activities at Christ the King to have a more tangible connection between the NHS and ourselves, to myth bust and break down barriers."
Boat launched for toughest test. An Isle of Wight rowing crew has launched their boat in preparation for one of the world's toughest rowing challenges. The Mermaid Atlantic team and a band of supporters gathered on the bank of the River Medina to launch their Rannoch 45 rowing boat and held a formal ceremony to rename the boat Mermaid. This December, the team will head to La Gomera, where they will embark on the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge, known as the world's toughest row. The gruelling mission will see the crew row 3,000 miles from the Canary Islands to the Caribbean in support of ocean preservation, raising funds for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, Surfers Against Sewage and the Seahorse Trust. Making up the Mermaid Atlantic team are islanders Chris Mannion, owner of iSurf, Paul Berry, vintner, longshoreman and firefighter, and Javier Baker, co-founder of the Isle of Wight distillery. All members are well versed in ocean sports with skills in sailing, surfing and kayaking. The crew have been training daily, undertaking a strict exercise regime and participating in safety courses to ensure they are up for the challenge.
Boat crash master appears in court. A boat's master, accused of poor seamanship before a crash into rocks in the West Wight, has appeared in the Isle of Wight Crown Court. The incident led to multiple casualties being taken to hospital. Some were airlifted. Appearing in court by video link, Ian Sullivan of South Marston, Wiltshire, was due to offer his plea to an indictment prepared by prosecutor, the Maritime Coast Guard Agency, on Monday. However, the wording of the indictment was challenged by Mr. Sullivan's counsel, Mark Ashley, and will require redrafting to be put before his client. When he appeared before Island magistrates on February the 16th, Mr. Sullivan faced charges of misconduct of master or crew likely to endanger ships, structures and/or individuals. The MCA also accused him of failing to maintain a proper lookout by sight, hearing and all other available means, and failing to proceed at a safe speed so his vessel could take proper and effective action to avoid collision, which caused or was likely to have caused the death or serious injury to a person. The charges relate to Mr. Sullivan being the master of Sully, a vessel which crashed near the Heddon Warren viewpoint, close to the waterfront bar and restaurant in Totland, in September 2022. Mr. Sullivan was bailed to reappear for a plea and trial preparation hearing at Portsmouth Crown Court on May the 19th.
New stadium gets closer to kick-off. A new, highly anticipated, long-awaited football ground could be a step closer. It comes as traffic restrictions and speed limits on nearby roads in Whippingham look set to be approved in the coming weeks. They are part of the yet-to-be-approved plan for the proposed new home of Newport Football Club. Motorists would be limited to 40 miles an hour near the site's proposed entrance and exit. Currently, the stretches of Whippingham Road and Racecourse leading up to the roundabout are 50 miles an hour. Other proposals would ensure safe entrance and exit to the football ground. If going into the site, you would only be able to turn left coming from the roundabout. Leaving the football ground, you would only be able to turn left, sending all traffic to the racecourse roundabout. The authority says there is a risk to pedestrians and cyclists, the safe and free movement of traffic and emergency access if no restrictions are put in place once the new football ground is operating. The proposals would, the council says, ensure safety for all road users while helping the movement of traffic. The stadium has been in the pipeline for more than 5 years. Last year, some boundary hedges were cleared, but work has since stopped on the site and conditions of the planning permission still need addressing. Developers South Coast Leisure have agreed to fund the necessary work to implement the restrictions. The recommendation is for the Isle of Wight Council to approve the 40 miles per hour limits and no entry restriction after a consultation period. The authority received 19 representations, 10 supportive and 9 against. Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for the Infrastructure and Transport, will make a delegated decision on May the 9th. He could refuse the proposals or agree them with an amendment. Before the football club can open, other highways-related proposals are required, like details of the access and exit junctions. Newport Football Club's former home on St George's Way currently stands empty. There are plans for a retail park with tenants including McDonald's, Costa Coffee and Aldi.
New project aims to make popular Isle of Wight beach accessible. Ryde Town Council has announced a new partnership with Unlimited Island and Ryde Beach Lifeguards designed to make Ryde Beach accessible to everybody. Ryde is the largest town on the island with 5 miles of sandy beaches, but a lack of accessibility means that many residents and visitors are excluded from enjoying it if they require wheelchairs, mobility scooters or walkers. The aim is to install non-slip matting that can be used to create an access route on the sand for pedestrians, families with pushchairs and people with limited mobility or in wheelchairs. In addition to this, the council plans to offer raised sunbeds and, most importantly, beach and water wheelchairs. The council is investigating the possibility of a new changing place modular unit next to the existing public conveniences and near the new access matting. This will allow wheelchair users to change and transfer into a beach or water wheelchair with dignity and have the peace of mind that a suitable toilet option is within reach. The Town Council has allocated an initial £10,000 grant, which has been doubled thanks to a contribution from the Isle of Wight Council. Further funding is needed to advance the project, however.
Now we move on to White Memories and Nostalgia, and this is written by Karen Lewis, who is joint founder of Shanklin Brass Band. Karen writes, "This year, Shanklin Town Brass Band, which I founded with my husband Malcolm in 1993, celebrates its 30th anniversary, and there have been many memorable moments along the way. At first, the band struggled to find instruments for its growing number of members and had to make do with old instruments donated to them by mainland bands and even some which were donated by the White Mouse Inn at Chale. You may remember old instruments hanging from the ceiling in the bar. However, it soon became apparent that, if the band was to progress, it would need to obtain a full set of matching instruments, and in 1995 an application was made to the Arts Council Lottery Fund. The application proved successful, and the band was able to purchase new instruments which are still in use today. Included with the grant was a sum of money to be used to commission a new piece of music, which would reflect and celebrate Shanklin's rich history, and after some discussion it was decided to approach Stuart Johnson, a well-known composer and arranger of music in the banding world. Stuart had written extensively for radio, television and the theatre, and many of his works had become brass band standards and were played all over the country. Having visited and conducted the band, Stuart spent time absorbing some of the Shanklin's atmosphere before returning home to compose what was to become Music for Shanklin, a 4-movement composition reflecting different areas and events from Shanklin's past and present. It ranges from the tranquility of Rylstone Gardens to the ferocity of the destruction of Shanklin's much-loved pier.
Music for Shanklin by Stuart Johnson. First March, Shanklin Town. The music conveys the hustle and bustle of the seaside town, but also reflects on its Edwardian elegance. Next, Serenade, Rylstone Gardens. This piece depicts the tranquility of the gardens, which are a favourite venue for open-air concerts throughout the summer. Third, Tuba on the Downs. Featuring the tuba section, it tells the story of one of the band's members who used to go up on the downs to practice his instrument. And fourth, Shanklin Pier, capturing the drama and terror of the great storm which destroyed Shanklin's magnificent pier, which once proudly jutted out from the promenade. The Music for Shanklin suite premiered on October the 4th, 1997, as part of a grand concert staged at Shanklin's Margaret Passmore's Theatre. It was conducted by its composer Stuart Johnson, along with a number of his other well-known band compositions. Both the Shanklin Youth and Senior bands also performed a selection of music under their director of music, Malcolm Lewis. Sadly, like Shanklin's Pier, the Margaret Passmore Theatre no longer exists, having been demolished to make way for housing. The band, however, does still exist, and in this, its 30th year, continues to give pleasure to audiences across the island.
Now, in my view, and this is an article written by Rebecca Roncoroni. The headline reads, Masterpiece of NHS Jargon. And Rebecca writes, following on from my last column about why NHS staff are striking, I decided to dig a little deeper. I found the Isle of Wight NHS Trust Annual Report and Accounts 2021 to 22. It is 120 pages long. I read it, and it is a masterpiece of jargon, with lots of words thrown around like innovation, performance, robust, partnerships, working dynamically, and a few business consult mantras, aspirational phrases such as getting to good after being placed in special measures by this government, great people, great place, to recruit and retain staff, anything except pay them, eh? No decision without me about including patients' experiences to inform future interventions. Your voice, a way for the staff to not be listened to, I suspect. Making sure people have the right care at the right time in the right place. Isn't that the whole reason the NHS exists? On page 24 there is a subheading, the business as a going concern. What does that mean? On page 37, under the heading Customer Satisfaction Scores, is the following. Whilst customer satisfaction is collected via family and friends test responses, data on protected characteristics is not routinely provided. The Trust is considering ways of robustly collecting this information. Right. On page 47, this little gem, the general duty of the Trust Board and each director individually is to act with the view to promoting the success of the Trust so as to maximise the benefit of the corporation as a whole and the public.
Note where the priorities are. Fuel to pay the many suits. who seem to be in charge of making life and death decisions in their little empires. It must be a comfort for all the frontline staff to know that all board members have annual appraisals and performance development plans. When I worked as a nurse, annual appraisals and clinical supervision were supposed to be an integral part of identifying training and support needs, but due to lack of resources, these were rarely carried out and were usually as a quick box-ticking exercise rather than to upskill and support. Speaking to colleagues today, anecdotally, nothing has changed. In fact, staff are feeling burnt out and invisible as individuals. Nowhere in the report is anything that appears to be from medically qualified staff. No medical director, no head of nursing, no occupational health, nothing from anyone who is clinically trained in providing medical care. Nowhere are the patients, the reason this trust exists, put at the centre or shown any authentic consideration. It's all about the dollar, baby.
Now this is public information, and the headline reads, How to Get a Free Water Butt from Southern Water. Throughout this year, I'll be writing to islanders to encourage everyone asked to take up Southern Water's offer of a free slow-release water butt, writes Bob Seeley. So why are Southern Water doing this, and what is a slow-release water butt? Southern Water are distributing the butts to help relieve pressure on our drainage systems. That pressure is worsened by rainwater runoff from roofs, roads and other impermeable surfaces which enter the sewer system, overwhelm it and sometimes result in sewage flowing into our rivers and seas. Slow release water butts hold water until the sewer system can take it. Why is this happening now? In 2021, the Conservatives introduced the Environment Act, enforcing much higher standards for environmental protection. As your Member of Parliament, I persuaded Southern Water to make the Isle of Wight an example of national best practice. By improving pumping stations, replumbing parts of the drainage system, providing slow drain water butts and redesigning road surfaces, the water system will work better. Please see my website for details of individual projects at www.bobseeley.org.uk/Southern Water. Community schemes are an important part of this plan. Initial evidence suggests that they work. Southern Water conducted a trial in Haven Street last year. Before the trial, Haven Street pumping station spilt polluted up to 30 times a year. 2/3 of eligible residents took up Southern Water's offer of free water butt installation. The result has been a 70% reduction in spills so far. Do you need to pay? The butt and its installation are free. No one knocking on your door for this scheme will ask for money. Where will the scheme be offered? So far, it's been offered in Gurnard. Fishbourne and Wootton will be next, then Freshwater, Yarmouth and East Cowes. After that, it will be offered to other parts of the island. Our water system isn't going to improve overnight. Agricultural runoff causes a lot of pollution, as just one example, but our plans will mean cleaner rivers and seas. I am talking with Southern Water regularly to monitor progress. As a swimmer, I hate the idea of polluted waters. We know that water firms need to undergo a sea change. On the island, we have one of Britain's best clean-up schemes. The water butts are a small but important part of that. It is a way of us all playing our part. The more of us that say yes, the better. If any islanders want to know more, please email me on bob.seeley.mp@parliament.uk.
Next is What's On. A memorial service will be held to mark the 80th anniversary of Newport's darkest day, April the 7th, 1943, when a Nazi bombing raid on the town killed 20 and injured more than 200. St. John's Church will be hosting a special service of Remembrance, organised by Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council on Friday, June the 9th.
At St Mary's Church in Cowes, there is a jigsaw festival from Tuesday the 2nd to Friday the 5th of May, and it runs from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's free entry, and for sale there will be new and complete used jigsaws, books, clothing, and there will be light refreshments. Credit and debit card payments will be accepted.
Ride Chorus. Ride Chorus presents an evening of Renaissance to contemporary choral music with guest accompanist James Longford at Ride Methodist Church next Friday, May the 5th, at 7:30 p.m. Retiring collection.
Aspire are hosting the King's Tea. Watch the coronation with afternoon tea. Enjoy music, games, a raffle and stalls on Saturday the 6th of May from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. It's only £3 per person.
Gardening Galore event is returning. Rookley's Garden Galore event is back, but will be delayed. The popular event was set to go ahead on Sunday, but due to the weather forecast, it has been pushed back to May the 14th. The event is organised by Rookley Village Association and is billed as the Isle of Wight's oldest event for all things gardening. It will take place at Rookley Village Hall and Sports Field on Highwood Lane from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. A spokesperson said, "After a very tough few years, those island-based horticultural organisations and nurseries that have survived need all the support that we can give them. A variety of growers, nurseries, garden centres and suppliers of all sorts of things for your garden will be available for you to browse. Entry is free, as is adjacent parking. Refreshments will be available, including homemade cakes, baked and served by Rookley Women's Institute. This year's charity collection is for Ability Dogs for Young People, who train assistance dogs to enhance the independence of disabled young people and children living on the island."
Folk duo head for Key Arts. As their 2023 tour winds down, award-winning folk music duo Catherine Roberts and Sean Lakeman prepare to return to the Isle of Wight. "We like to present an intimate, varied evening of music, and hopefully we can create a bit of communication and connection with the audience," Catherine told the county press. The husband and wife duo will appear at Key Arts in Newport on May the 5th, performing songs from their latest album, Almost a Sunset. Their seventh, it was recorded at Devon Pace in their studio on Dartmoor over the course of a year. "The album is doing really great. We've sold lots of copies and we've been getting some really wonderful favourable reviews," said Sean. "We couldn't be happier with it. It's a real mixed bag of story songs and a couple of traditional ballads we've modernised." Sean's favourite track to perform is Eavesdropper, which he describes as really good fun to play. Catherine enjoys Bound to Stone. "When we first came to record that, I wasn't sure we could pull it off live, but it's worked out really well," she says.
Cowes Town Council and community partners invite you to the official Cowes Coronation Celebration Picnic in the Park. This is from 12 to 5 p.m. on Sunday the 7th of May in Northwood Park. A free community celebration for Cowes. Just bring family, friends and a picnic.
We're on to letters now, and this is a letter written by Ken Harvey of Ride, headline reading, "These issues need to be addressed." Dear Editor, I am wondering why the planners and planning committee seem to overlook the issues arising from planning applications. These include the environmental impact on wildlife and traffic, medical needs such as GPs and dentists, and also old people's homes, sewage disposal and water supply. I have never seen these issues debated and reported on. I also wonder what is the capacity of the sewage treatment works in Sandown, as it was constructed in the early 90s. How much capacity is there for future development? I hope someone has an answer.
Oral hygiene crisis impacts schools. This letter is by Peter Shreve, Assistant District Secretary, Isle of Wight National Education Union. Peter writes, reading the House of Commons Library research briefing, Dentistry in England, one cannot hope to be anything but appalled. Yet another example of national government rationing public services. Between 2010-11 and 2021-22, total funding for dental services in England fell by 8% in real terms, down from 3.36 billion to 3.10 billion. Last year, the British Dental Association reported 3,000 dentists had stopped providing NHS dental services since the start of the pandemic. This year, 75% said they were likely to reduce their NHS commitment in the next year. I am aware of one adult on the Isle of Wight being unable to access an NHS dentist for more than 4 years, despite working for 44 years and paying their national insurance contributions throughout. The lack of NHS dentist availability is a scandal for young people too. Less than half of children in England saw a dentist in 2022. Grassroots Hygiene Poverty Charity Beauty Banks surveyed secondary teachers focusing on pupil oral health. Unsurprisingly, this oral hygiene crisis creates a more challenging working environment for pupils and teachers. Children miss school, and poor hygiene can lead to bullying and isolation. Tooth decay remains the most common reason for hospital admissions among young children.
There are some brilliant people around, and we want to say thank you, writes Leslie Palmer of Shanklin. My mother Brenda had a nasty fall on Thursday, April the 20th at approximately 10:15 a.m. and wanted to say thanks to a Southern Vectis bus driver who was driving by with a learner driver under tuition at the time. She tripped by St Blasius Church in Shanklin while walking our Shih Tzu Max. A lovely lady came over to help, and next thing she knew, a man was also helping her to her feet. She then saw the bus that had pulled in when they saw her on the ground. It just shows there are some brilliant people around. I also wanted to add my thanks, as unfortunately I had gone out and forgotten my mobile. We got her checked over at the surgery, and she will have some nasty bruises and her hands were badly cut. But considering she is 93 in June, she was very lucky.
Playoffs are unfair. This letter is by Sam Turner of Sandown. I am thoroughly dismayed at the imposition of playoffs being foisted on football feeder leagues in England. Last night I watched as my team lost in such a playoff, and this isn't sour grapes at the loss. It's the sheer madness that at the close of the season having already been completed, a team with 86 points in second place were beaten by a team with 76 points in fifth place. Fifth placed at the close of season means not good enough, didn't achieve and hope to do better next season, while the second place team on 86 points were good enough, had achieved and would normally have been promoted to the next division higher. But such is the insanity of playoffs, introduced for the professional leagues to boost football attendances and obviously to make ever more money for the coffers with TV rights, etc. So that's the professional game. Money, money, money. Now come to the feeder leagues, where the emphasis is sport, sport, sport. Gates remain fairly static throughout the season, as do incomes. Therefore, absolutely no need for playoffs. 2 years ago, there was a tremendous sigh in non-league. Why do we need playoffs at this level? Why force this non-sport activity on these feeder leagues? It won't make any difference to the average gate attendances and won't increase the season's overall takings. So why? Playoffs are a travesty at this level, where insanity rules. Merit? What's that? Where failure to achieve in normal time is now rewarded.
Bob Blizzard of Sandown has a headline for his letter that reads, New Life for Treasured Bike. Almost exactly 40 years ago, in 1983, I won a Rally 12-speed racing bike in a competition in the county press. The bicycle was for many years my pride and joy, and I used it on the island, in many parts of the country and in northern France. When I left the island for work reasons, it came with me to places where I was living and working, ranging from County Durham to Cornwall and then back to the island when I returned 20 years ago. In recent years, it has inhabited my garage and is now looking quite sad. When I saw the news story in the county press about bicycles needed to go to Africa, I decided to donate it to Bikes for Africa. I hope the bike will be restored to its former glory and someone in Africa can make good use of it for many years to come. I had hoped to have a final ride from Sandown to Newport, but unfortunately the tyres are flat and I was unable to inflate them. I am grateful to the Southern Vectis bus driver who allowed me to bring the bike on the bus to allow me to deliver it to the collection point at Gift to Nature, Pan Meadows. It was nice to see other people donating to the cause.
Shades of Hancock. This letter is written by Sally Wright of Freshwater. Dear Editor, reading Dominic Raab's resignation letter took me right back to the days of Tony Hancock and that wonderful sketch where Hancock shouts, "Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me."
And that's the end of the letters section and this particular section of the Talking News. And so therefore it's goodbye from me, Morris.
And from Sue. Before the In Touch this week, we have a radio interview with Ruth Hollingshead, one of our members. There is no scaffolding news this week.
Today then we are meeting one of only 500 people in the UK who've been named a Coronation Champion. Ruth Hollingshead volunteers with Sight for White on the island and joins us live on BBC Radio Solent this afternoon. Ruth, I have to say congratulations first of all. What does it feel like knowing that you are only one of 500 people first of all?
It feels fantastic. Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled.
Tell me more about how you got the news then and what it all means.
Well, I got an email through just saying, congratulations, you are a Coronation Champion. I mean, I had the CEO who nominated me, lovely Lisa, did have to let me know a couple of weeks beforehand that I had been. But I just thought, there'll be millions. Do you know what I mean? It will be. And I didn't think anything else of it until I actually got the email through, and I really couldn't believe it.
Let me just interrupt you a second because I just want to explain why you've been nominated, because you've been described as an outstanding volunteer for Sight for White. So tell me more about what you do.
I've been a volunteer there. I mean, I started about 25 years ago and then had a break when my children were small. And I've been an active volunteer there now for about 15 years. And I do sort of help out at coffee morning. I've done reception work. I'm a trustee there. And I also do a Living Well with Sight Loss course more recently, which is a day course that gives information to people who are just starting their sight loss journey about sort of local and national charities, and I go out into the community and do talks for various different groups. And I'm also a volunteer for the Macular Society and guide dogs as well, doing a similar thing for them.
My goodness, when do you have time to sleep?
Well, with 2 dogs at the moment, not very often.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a bit of a challenge. So I interrupted you. Tell me about the important bit of what this all means, being one of 500 Coronation Champions, and what the invite entails, because you get to go to quite an important event, don't you?
I do. I'm going to the Coronation concert at Windsor Castle on Sunday, me and a guest. So that is absolutely brilliant. I'm also getting a sort of certificate signed by Their Majesties and a pin badge, which will be officially presented to me. We've got a coronation celebration Sight for White is putting on for the members. So that's going to be officially presented to me there for that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And when you knew that Lisa had nominated you, as you said, you went, there'll be millions of people. But it must have meant so much to you knowing that she'd nominated you and that your work had been recognised in this way.
It really did, yes. It did mean a lot. But equally, you know, I sort of accepting it on behalf of all the volunteers. We've got an amazing team at Sight for White. We are so lucky. And without them, we certainly couldn't do all the things that we do there. Right the way through from sort of escorts to the people who read the talking news. We've got an incredible bunch of volunteers there. So, yeah, I'm really accepting it on behalf of everybody.
Well,
but yeah, thrilled to be singled out.
Well, congratulations. And I hope you have a fantastic time at the concert. Anything you're looking forward to most about it all?
I'm of a certain age now, so I'm quite looking forward to Lionel Richie, I have to say. So that's what I've got my eye on there, yes. And I've decided to leave my guide dog at home so she can have an evening off as well, so that'll be nice for her too.
Oh, it will be, yeah. I think that might be a little bit of an overwhelming event for a guide dog, I would imagine.
It certainly would, yeah.
Yeah, well, Ruth, congratulations to you from everybody here at BBC Radio Solent. We'll get you back on as well after you've been to the event in Windsor, just to see what you made of it all as well. It'd be good to have somebody who's there from the south. Ruth Hollingshead, who volunteers with Sight for White on the island and has been named as one of only 500 people in the entire country who has been named a Coronation Champion. Congratulations to her.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Combat audio cues on. Enables additional accessibility audio cues to assist with combat and stealth. Navigation assistance on. New game. X button.
Regular listeners won't be at all surprised to know that I am by no means a gaming expert. In fact, I'm a complete novice. But I do have with me my producer, Beth Hemmings, who tonight will also be acting as my guide to gaming and explain some of that terminology, which is completely puzzling to me. We'll also demonstrate the way in which the gaming industry is trying to make its games more accessible.
OK, Peter, so we've got all the accessibility options loaded up, everything, hopefully, that you should need to play The Last of Us Part 2. It is regarded as, air quotes, the world's most accessible game for visually impaired people. I'm going to hand you the controller here, right. The PlayStation controller.
OK.
You'll feel where your index fingers are at the top.
Yeah.
You'll notice there's sort of like some trigger buttons.
Little trigger buttons, like a gun trigger.
That one is for aiming. Okay. So when you hear...
You are crouched. You are in waist-high grass. Semi-auto pistol. Equipped.
Ooh, yeah.
Compact rifle ammo.
Oh! Have I killed anyone?
Oh.
What happened?
You were killed.
Oh dear. Well, Beth, you didn't have to sound quite so happy about it, I must say. Anyway, I have at least been resuscitated for long enough to complete the programme. And it is safe to say, I think, that gaming has moved on considerably since I played last, which was actually back in 1999, I think. It's clear that the sophistication of games generally has evolved pretty dramatically over those years, and the attitudes around accessibility of the people who make them are slowly catching up. In recent years, part of that drive for change could be thanks to something called the Gaming Accessibility Conference, hosted by a special interest group of the International Game Developers Association. Well, they've a version of that in the USA, but the European offering concluded today in London at the Coin Street Conference Centre. Producer Beth is back to tell us more about it. So Beth, what is it and what's the structure of it?
It's a 2-day conference that's designed for the gaming industry so that they can improve their understanding of how to go about including accessibility features within their game designs. So it's an online and in-person conference. We were going to go to it, weren't we, Peter? But it turned out to be a bit more of a viewing party.
Just people staring at screens. Yeah.
Exactly.
Didn't think would make great radio.
That's exactly what I thought as well. So people from the industry were sending in pre-recorded videos talking about advancements in accessibility from their studios and sort of the respective projects that they're all working on, all with the idea of inspiring their peers to really consider the possibilities when it comes to accessibility.
So why is this so important?
Well, it comes down to the very fact that this conference exists in the world of gaming, really. The video game industry has very few standards for accessibility. So this conference is highlighting that growing numbers of developers are finally seeing the benefits of including disabled players and acknowledging what they can get from being included, like access to culture, recreation. Gaming can be a really great place for socialising. But in terms of the way that developers are thinking, last year the RNIB did a study that found that more than 70% of game developers would like to see better knowledge sharing around accessibility and have better access to resources on how to do it right. So this conference is a really good place to start, I think.
So the conference did talk about specific disabilities. What things were particularly relevant to blind and partially sighted people?
Well, as you said, they covered a lot of things, but I should just say here that accessibility for our community is far from perfect. You know, as part of that same study I mentioned by the RNIB, they found that only 15% of developers have good understanding of the needs of gamers with sight loss. This is reflected in many ways because it can be very hit and miss as to what games you can play, depending on your level of sight. Having said that, there were some good things being spoken about at the GA conference, as it's referred to, Gaming Accessibility Conference. There's a game called Sea of Thieves, which is available on the Xbox console. So the player assumes the role of a pirate and you can go sailing, plundering and treasure hunting.
Captain Jack Sparrow. But I suspect you already knew that.
Because of the treasure Jack stole, a darkness followed him here. And if it's not stopped, this world will sink into shadow.
So players of this game can really live out their Pirates of the Caribbean fantasy.
Yes.
That game, Sea of Thieves, was created in 2018 by a studio called Rare. And since then, they've released 39 updates, which have all had accessibility improvements or entirely new features added. One of the game's software engineers, Topher Winwood, told the Gaming Accessibility Conference about the type of things that are available to blind gamers.
The first and most obvious one is that most of our menus are narrated. If you move around using the keyboard, mouse, or Xbox controller, the text-to-speech system will kick in and let you know what you're looking at. When you level up in game or you hand in a treasure chest, we pop up a notification and we narrate that out loud. But this comes with many challenges. These are asynchronous and can appear at unpredictable times. And this is hard to balance. What's high priority? You have to design these carefully. Text size is one of the most common accessibility concerns that people have, where it's typically too small. In June 2020, we doubled text size across the board, and then we gave players an option to lower it back down if needed later. We made sure that all interaction points in the game are narrated, so here you can see it says, press X to use cannon. This simplifies navigation and lets you know what item you're about to use.
So, I mean, all that stuff sounds good, but like a lot of these modern games, Sea of Thieves isn't perfect. But it's a good example of how studios are demonstrating to others, you know, people that are within the industry, that blind accessibility can be done.
And he was giving quite a lot of practical ideas there. So, you know, it's not just talk, is it, by the sound of it? Anything else that piqued your interest?
Yeah, there were a few things, but one that did actually excite me, because it's something that I would really benefit from as a gamer myself, It was a prototype that was developed by totally blind gamer and accessibility consultant Sightless Combat, that's what he goes by, and a woman called Carrie Waterton from a studio called Rebellion. We'll hear a little bit more from Sightless Combat in a moment, actually, on a campaign that the RNIB have been working on. But this prototype of theirs, it's designed for parts of games that require stealth. So this is when you're sort of trying to sneak around enemies and oftentimes you're trying to take them out quietly without others knowing you're there. So
I could have done with this, couldn't I, when I was shot?
You could have, yeah. But they've called their system Project Black Cat, and they gave an exclusive demonstration at the conference of how it can work.
A long, cold corridor extends before you. Slightly ahead to the right is a wooden crate. At the end of the corridor, you see it turns sharply to the right.
So we have audio description built into the game itself?
This crate could be a good place to hide. Press A to hide when near crates. A guard patrols ahead. You have no weapons, but he has a knife on his belt. See if you can sneak up behind him and take him out with his knife. Press A when behind an enemy to perform a takedown.
Oh, we might not get there, we're going to turn.
There were a few other things that we just didn't have time to talk about today, including adaptations for deaf-blind gamers, and there were other individual game developers talking about their games that have some good accessibility features for visually impaired people. Definitely something we'll have to come back to in a future.
Indeed we will. Beth Hemmings, thank you very much indeed. Well, as Beth mentioned, Sightless Combat is a totally blind gamer and consultant, but more recently he's the Accessible Gaming Officer for the RNIB. Now, they've recently launched their Design for Every Gamer campaign, or DFEG as it's been abbreviated to. Sightless Combat, first of all, tell us what it is, the campaign, and what its aims are.
So Design for Every Gamer is RNIB's new initiative that essentially is a rallying cry to the video game industry and to gamers who are blind or partially sighted to get involved as well and move accessibility forward. But it's RNIB's fundamental belief that, you know, regardless of how you see, you should still be able to game.
I mean, I suppose the problem from a game developer's point of view is that it's difficult enough for you to actually have to think about people who can't see, and then you come along to them and you say, and hang on, there are about 30 different ways that they can't see. That is quite a challenge, isn't it?
Indeed, but Design for Every Gamer is all about awareness raising as well, which is a key part of answering that challenge. Because during the live streams that were hosted as a part of the launch, we had a bunch of sight condition filters. They encompassed sight loss conditions like Stargardt's, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, retinitis pigmentosa, and little to no useful sight. And whilst they won't represent how everyone with those conditions sees, they are a definite step forward in showing, this is some of the ways that people can be impacted and, how your accessibility features could potentially help.
Well, let's hear what happened when sighted Twitch streamer Behaving Beardly had his screen hijacked by the RNIB. By the way, Twitch is a live streaming website which focuses on video games being streamed live.
You will experience what it is like to play with a sight-limiting condition.
What? There it is. I'm being head-tracked at the moment. My gameplay has got a filter over the top. This first one is diabetic retinopathy. Basically, the whole gameplay is blurry. The colours are muted, and there's like a kind of a watery fog effect over me. So a lot of the image is actually blacked out, basically.
The key thing to note is that people will still want to, do things that they would otherwise be able to do if they've got sight. And one of those big things is gaming. I've heard a few people say over the years, if I lost my sight, I wouldn't know what to do, but I'd still want to game. And, the fact that game developers are becoming aware of accessibility and the needs of blind and partially sighted gamers, that's a huge thing. But DFEG is, as I said earlier, the real rallying cry to get everyone kind of clubbing together to make this work on, a long-term initiative as well.
I mean, just to look at it from the other end of the telescope in a way, because you were talking there about people who lost their sight and would want to go on gaming. But I think, like me, you were actually blind from birth. I mean, how did you get into gaming, given the fact that you're having to tell them now how to do it. So how did you actually get the access in the first place?
I actually tried, PC games when I was much younger, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know how screen readers worked. I don't think I even knew they existed. But it was mostly just pressing buttons and nose-diving planes into literally unseen territory. But then I tried audio-only games, which were fun for me, but not necessarily fun for any sighted people watching because they're just mostly a black screen. And then I went from that to console games, and I pretty much haven't looked back since. Gaming is very much a social, cultural experience. Everybody coming up to you and saying, "Oh, have you seen this new boss fight?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have. It looks really tough. I'd love to be able to play it, but I can't because the game isn't accessible." Part of Design for Every Gamer is the user testing panel, the player panel, and is looking for signups. So if you're interested in that, you can visit the accessible gaming page of RNIB's website. There will be opportunities available to, talk to the industry, provide feedback, and, give valuable insights, I think is a good way to term it.
So just to look to the future, are there any upcoming games that you're particularly looking forward to?
Well, yeah, I've got a few, definitely, even this year. So me being a massive Star Wars fan, I'm very excited about Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is coming out in about a week.
Hi, I'm Steve Saylor. I'm a blind gamer, accessibility consultant, and YouTube personality, and I'm here today to talk about the accessibility features of the upcoming Star Wars game, Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Why? Fight!
Cal duels a hooded opponent wielding a red lightsaber and is viciously disarmed.
When you can't win.
In the office.
What is your next move?
The Powan opens the case.
Jedi.
Revealing Cal's lightsaber.
Well, welcome to the programme, Steve Saylor. Good to talk to you again. So if you could perhaps just tell us what the premise of this game is. I mean, we know it's a Star Wars game, of course, but it's the second game in the series, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it focuses on a character that is brand new to the Star Wars universe that was created in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, name of Cal Kestis. He was a kid who basically was in training to be a Jedi, but during the events of what is called Order 66, where all the Jedi were being hunted, he was basically in hiding for a very long time until an incident happens where he basically finds himself that he's not alone as the only Jedi that's out there. So Jedi Survivor takes place 5 years after the events of the first game, where Cal is basically on a mission to, try to be able to disrupt the Empire, as it were, and try to be able to bring some hope back to the galaxy.
There's clearly a lot of excitement about this amongst people who enjoyed the first one. You were one of the first people to play a 4-hour accessibility preview of the game. Could you just explain how it can be accessed by people who are blind or have low vision like yourself?
Well, the great thing about the Jedi Survivor of what I've played so far is that it definitely improves on the accessibility of the first game. I was lucky enough that I was able to play the first game when it came out, but it was still with a little bit of difficulty just being able to read the text that was on screen and also being able to track where enemies were. I will say that the game is definitely improved a lot since then. The text size has been redesigned so that it can actually be able to be increased or decreased, as it were. There is a bit of navigational assistance. You can be able to navigate the map a little bit easier. Also, another additional features that I really loved was the ability to be able to switch the cameras between different targets when you're attacking different enemies at once. And also, the game speed option was super key for me, especially in this kind of a game where combat is the sole focus. Being able to slow down the game enough so that I can be able to hit those dodges when I needed to was super key in being able to play. I will say it's probably not fully accessible as both Sightless Combat and myself would have wanted for blind and low vision players, but like I said, it's definitely an improvement.
So what does need to be improved? You want to be a bit more specific about what you would do?
For instance, being able to have something like, say, a high contrast mode, that is something that was introduced in The Last of Us Part 2, essentially kind of mutes the colors of all the environments and sort of turns your character into sort of a blue color and your enemies into a red, but you can customize the colors of that as well. So being able to do that will kind of helps distinguish where the enemies are in case of the environment that you're in. And then also as well, I wish it had more text narration. Unfortunately, it does not have that in the game, at least at this time, as far as we know.
Well, we spoke to EA Games and they told us that in future updates, the high contrast mode and menu narration will be available. Is that what you're expecting, and how much will this improve your experience?
It would definitely improve a lot, for sure. Because of my vision, I have to actively focus on so much that's happening in the game. It can cause fatigue, which lessens the amount of playtime I can have. So something like high contrast mode and menu narration will sort of prolong those gameplay sessions.
We've heard a lot of good intentions on this programme, Steve, so far. I just wonder how you, as an experienced player, how complete do you think the industry's commitment is to this?
I've seen a lot more conversations happening at studios that are wanting to be able to push for more accessibility. So I think that we're in state of the industry. We now understand the why accessibility is important. It's just now developers are figuring out the how. So I would say probably within about 5 years from now, we'll definitely see a lot more games regularly being produced that are a lot more accessible than they currently are.
Well, I guess in that case, we'll be hearing perhaps a good deal more from you over the next 5 years. Steve Saylor, thank you very much indeed. And thanks also to Sightless Combat. Do tell us your experiences of playing video games. Will you be trying out the new Jedi Survivor? Or does the very concept of gaming just not appeal to you? And if not, why not? Let us know. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338 or go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Nat Stokes and Simon Highfield, goodbye.